I'm Jessica Ganawa, lecturer in International Relations at Flinders University in Australia, and I'm talking today with Maxim, Professor of International Relations at the National Aviation University in Kyiv. Thanks for talking to me today, Maxim.
You're welcome, Jessica.
We've recently had the first evacuations of civilians from the Azovstal steel plant in Mariupol. And I wanted to get your reaction to that and also ask you whether you think that there will be, we know that there are still civilians left in Azovstal. Do we think that more civilians will end up being evacuated?
They should be, because only a small part of them managed to leave Azovstal, approximately 150 people in general during 2 or 3 days, last attempts. And due to the latest information from the Azov regiment, there are still a few hundred, at least, people. Nobody knows for sure how many, because after last heavy bombardments, it's impossible to get to the shelters where civilians are and to check up how many people still there, civilians. And actually, the problem is that even though Russians say they stop bombardments, shelling, they stop it only for a while and then restart it again. So, and of course, it's obvious that it's more and more difficult to get there, to evacuate. A few days ago, they hit into the hospital. So there are hundreds of people there wounded, and now it's impossible to give any medical assistance because it was the only place where the place fit for it, and where were at least some medicine equipment. So now it's impossible to do that, to give any assistance. As for the future, well, probably, I guess, there will be such small evacuations of tens people, just 20, 30 is usually like during last days. And Russians are also interested in it for propaganda. They make pieces, they make videos, they ask people to give some interview, especially those who decide to go to Russia. Of course, it's obvious that they are hostages and they say everything they are told. And it already was obvious last video, I guess we discussed with you this, when two person, wife and the husband, were contradicting things, sitting together in one video. So it was obvious that it was prepared beforehand, but the problem is that the problem, I would say, of these propagandists, that they are not professional and they're trying to do it as quick as possible. So even confuse the legends, and then it's like this. It's very easy to understand, even not for a professional, that it was a setup. So I guess still possible, taking into account that Mariupol is on front pages, and it also gives some, I would say, profits to Putin, to Kremlin. They are showing like we are doing what we want what we can, taking care of the people, but definitely doesn't concern militaries, Azov regiments, Marines, policemen who are still fighting there. They will not let them out, because the only option they propose is to surrender, but it is obvious and many times was stated already by our soldiers that they will not surrender without weapons, because they know that, you know, it's better to die under shelling in the fight as a real hero than to be tortured by Russians, by Kadyrov's soldiers. They are absolutely mad, and what they do with people, I have heard already many awful stories, and they are well known already to everybody. So of course they will not surrender. Some civilians, as I mentioned, could be evacuated, the same as some civilians from Mariupol. They still every day tries, but only I told you already the reasons. It's impossible to inform people, and taken into account that the information appears in the last moment. Only a few of them can have this information and come to the places where evacuation starts. Besides, it always happens, they need to wait for hours. So for those who manage to do it, the lucky ones, only those use this chance. Taken into account that there are more than 100,000 of people, of course, this process will keep going on, because for Ukrainian authorities, it's also very important to show some results. Because, you know, this topic in Ukrainian society is very, I don't know even how to say. So everybody follows it, and some politicians, oppositional ones, using it to criticize Zelensky, authorities as a whole, that they failed it. We had already such cases during Poroshenko's time, when it was tragedy in Ilovaisk and Debaltseva, complete encirclements. Many people died there, and then still we don't know all the truth about that cases, and still it undermined the legitimacy and authority of Poroshenko. And Russians, Kremlin, using the same mechanism to undermine the rating, the level of trust to Zelensky as well. I guess this story will have a long way and perspectives. That's why, by the way, Kremlin doesn't let this evacuation, and taking into account that people who are left in Mariupol don't have any alternative sources, they have no internet connection. These rumors spread by Russian propagandists is the only source of information, and unfortunately, step by step, more and more people believe in it. And that's the goal of Kremlin and authorities, local authorities, collaborators, I would say, who work there, represent so-called local authorities, local power.
Mm-hmm. And talking of the propaganda, just going back to that video that you mentioned, I think that's quite illustrative for people to understand the way in which the sort of propaganda engine is functioning. Can you say a little bit more about that? Like, what was the difference in the story between the man and the woman in the couple in that video?
So the woman was telling, they were both asked, and it's usual thing, and one of the key statements, I would say, of propaganda, that Ukrainian armed forces didn't let civilians to evacuate, to leave the city since the beginning of besiege. And women told that Ukrainian armed forces didn't block evacuation. They let people go, civilians. They just said that it's too dangerous and it's up to you, because there were constantly bombardments, shelling, and it was really risky and dangerous for life to leave, especially for civilians. But the man, her husband, who was just sitting next to her, said, yes, they didn't let us out. They forbade us. So this obvious contradiction shows that they were given different instructions. So at least the man was given what to tell, and the woman wasn't prepared. So it was a mistake of those who worked with them, who were responsible for that propaganda video.
Yeah. And this isn't something that is pleasant to contemplate, but does it seem like, I mean, as you foreshadowed when we last spoke a few days ago, you said it's very possible that after some civilians are evacuated from Azovstal, the bombing will intensify, and the focus of the Russian military on really trying to succeed in carrying out a full occupation of Mariupol. Does it seem now like that's only a matter of time?
Well, it's obvious already, actually. Of course, you and I don't write it, and I don't say it not to undermine the belief, but it is obvious that by the 9th of May, to make a parade there, military parade, they're already preparing. That's the only goal they can achieve. So that's what they're doing now, because they already canceled military parade even in Donetsk, which took place every year during last 8 years of the war. They canceled it, and that's why now, even as you know, the most famous prominent propagandist Solovyov yesterday was in Mariupol, though he left it already. There were some pictures of him near another steel plant, Ilyicha. It's even huger than Azovstal. Also, the deputy head of Russian president administration, Kiriyenko, now is in Mariupol, the latest news, and he became responsible for Donbass in Kremlin. So they are now preparing, cleaning up the central streets to make parade, to make this propaganda picture, first of all, for Russians to show the success, because Mariupol is the biggest city. They have managed at least partially to occupy. Kherson, as you know, it's smaller, though it has another administrative status. It's a region center. Mariupol is not, unfortunately, because it was too close to Donetsk, just 100 kilometers away. Though it was almost 500,000 population, and it's, if I'm not mistaken, number 7 due to population city in Ukraine as a whole. It doesn't have such a administrative status as a center. So, as I told you, the chances are quite big. Now they left some people, some civilians, to leave for that propaganda, to show that they go meet compromises, like they take care of civilians. And yes, I guess maybe during 1 or 2 days still there are going to be some attempts more to evacuate civilians from Azovstal, and then they will restart, not even restart, they don't stop it actually. The fights keep going on every day. After evacuation is over, they start bombardments, shelling from the ships, from all kind of weapons they have, and it was the same during all these days. So I guess they will try their best to kill everybody there until they know that they don't care, of course, of civilians. I guess they will let some leave and then use huge bombs to, at least they will try, yes, to destroy it completely, to kill everybody there, to say, okay, we gave them possibility to leave, to surrender. They didn't use it. It was their choice, like as usually happens.
And that parade that you mentioned that used to be in Donetsk but has been cancelled this year, was that a 9th of May parade?
Yes, it is.
Okay,
it is.
Yes, I see. And I mean, it seems though in the Azovstal steel plant, if a lot of the tunnels are quite far underground, that it would be challenging to really reach everybody. I mean, it doesn't seem like a pleasant possibility to have to live underground for a long period of time, but it also seems like there's a potential for an ongoing stalemate to some extent, because, you know, it would be hard to actually access those people that are still underground in the tunnels living.
Well, you know, yes, if to make parallels with, for example, Second World War and Odessa, there were huge tunnels under the city, and guerrillas, Soviet guerrillas, kept fighting until it was deoccupied by Soviet troops. So for a few years they managed, but the problem was that the tunnels had exits outside. It was they were huge, the system of it, so they could leave at night and to take some weapons, to take some food. So the problem is that and danger is that food, water, and weapons may be over, and that's what actually why Putin decided to stop the offensive on Azovstal, because he realized that it's too dangerous. Many soldiers have been killed already and will be killed more, and they need resources to send them to another parts of Donbass, and that's what they did actually already. So now they are trying day by day bombarding and trying not to let them out and to wait until the storages of food, everything, and most of all weapons are over. So that's their goal. How long it will take prolong, that depends. As I told you, nobody knows how much is left, but due to information we know, and they say themselves, I mean, soldiers and Azov regiments, they say that there is a crisis, huge crisis with all that supplies, and that they don't have any additional resources. So that's the problem, and why it can be it can end up with a tragedy.
Yeah. Thanks, Maxim, for the update. We'll keep following the situation as it evolves. Talk to you soon.